I'm not that tall. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Did we have a good lunch? Did we have a good morning session? Excellent. How many of you had lunch and met somebody you didn't know before? Wow. How many of you learned something new about somebody you did know before? Yeah, me too. So pretty fabulous day, yeah? Excellent. Now, oh, I forgot, you might not have known me before. I'm Sherry Settle. I'm Director of Sponsored Programs here at NC State, and I have the privilege of introducing today's guest speaker. The keynote address is a little later in today's program than might be typical because, well, some things are worth waiting for. Pamela Webb is Associate Vice President for Research at the University of Minnesota, where she is responsible for pre-award and post-award non-financial services across 5 campuses, which is a little different from 10 colleges that act like 10 campuses, supporting more than $800 million in research awards annually. She has overseen research administration functions as varied as F&A rate negotiations, effort reporting, export control, and a few of our other favorite things. She claims to have 35 years of experience in our profession, which I think means she must have started very, very young. Prior to her 2007 appointment at Minnesota, Pamela held positions at Stanford, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, and Northwestern. And despite all of this, I understand this is her first visit to Raleigh. In addition to her very impressive day job, Pamela has provided leadership at the national level for the National Council of University Research Administrators, for the Federal Demonstration Partnership, and the Council on Governmental Relations. In 2016, she received NCURA's highest honor, the Outstanding Achievement in Research Administration Award. As an NCURA distinguished educator, she continues to advise, to inform, and to inspire both our federal sponsors and university research administrators like us. To talk with us about building community, collaborating like faculty, please help me welcome Pamela Webb.
You can tell what generation I am by the fact that I have to put these on. But I'm not all the way to the left on that chart. So you have this one. So the first thing is I have a job for you guys. I want you to think about a time when you were supremely happy in your work environment. Something related to a project or an initiative, and something that still makes you proud today about what you did. Something that you would really like mentioned when you retire and your boss stands up and talks about you, okay? It can be individual, or it can be a part of a group activity, either one. But it needs to be something that you remember with great warmness, fondness, and pride. Now I want you to write that down. Take one, the table should take the same color, doesn't matter which color, but just take the whole table the same color. Write it down in 2 minutes. And don't worry, you're not going to have to stand up and say this, but one other person is going to see it. Whatever you want. Whatever you can fit in 2 minutes. take about 1 more minute. Okay. Now what I want you to do is pass that piece of paper to the person on your right. Okay. Okay. Everybody got their neighbor's piece of paper? Okay, neighbors, you have a job to do now. I want you to write down on a different colored piece of paper whether you think the achievement that you're reading was an individual contribution or part of a group achievement. Individual or group? Those are the only word. Group, team, doesn't matter. Now, you are allowed to ask up to 2 questions of the person that wrote it in the first place if you can't tell cleanly which of those 2 it is. But only 2, so make them count. Sure. Okay, so the person who received the accomplishment from their neighbor should write down on a different colored piece of paper, individual or group. And what you're doing is you're evaluating your neighbor's accomplishment and deciding whether that accomplishment was part of a team or group accomplishment or whether that person had an individual accomplishment. If you can't tell, you can ask the person who wrote it up to 2 questions, but then you have to stop. Okay, I'll give you a minute or so to do that. Yep. You went in here
Whenever we need it. I think you were saying we might pass it.
Well, I'm going to ask you if you would to go from table to table and collect.
Perfect.
Right.
So I'll just have it.
Right, you just hang out because it's right. Yeah. Okay. Stop. Now what I want you to do is return the piece of paper with the accomplishment to the author of that accomplishment. And all of you that got your piece of paper back, I want you to fold it up and put it somewhere safe. I want you to put it in your purse, in your back pocket, wherever you're going to keep it safe, because I want you to pull it out and look at it the next time you have one of those impossible days, which could be tomorrow. Although I'm kind of hoping not, because I'm teaching with you guys tomorrow. And besides that, it's going to be useful because you can hand that to your boss someday when you do retire and say, I want you to talk about this at my retirement party. And then I'm going to ask all the pieces of paper that have group or individual. Laura's going to go around and collect those from your table, if you would. And at the end of our time together today, we're going to compare how many people cited individual contributions and how many people cited group achievements, and talk about what that means. So today we're going to talk about collaboration. How many of you have heard the phrase team science? Is that familiar to some of you? Well, it looks from this week's newspaper alone that some people are doing it pretty darn well. we're going to use some of the theories that our faculty use when they collaborate and turn it into team administration instead of team science. But I'd like to go at it with you today in a way that kind of makes it fun. But maybe also actually makes progress on an issue that I've been told exists here at your university. And so the issue we have for today is I'm understanding that most of your research administration offices are at the collegiate level, but that your financial system has awards siloed. In other words, it's not easy to look at a project that crosses collegiate boundaries, particularly in the financial system, but maybe also at time when proposals are going in. Is that true? True? Okay. So we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so together trying to solve this as a team. And so I want everybody that's on this side, the 2 rows of tables on this side, to write down and to talk among yourselves, and I want you to make a list of good reasons why this kind of protection is in place at your institution. You want to do good reasons. Okay? Why do you think the university has that kind of requirement in the way it's set up? And there must be good and sufficient reasons for doing that. So to the extent you know, or to the extent you can guess, I want you to spend a few minutes writing those down. You can pick any color piece of paper you want. This side of the room, I want you to make a list of the problems that is causing you. Now, I'll tell you now, it's the only moaning and groaning part of the afternoon, so take advantage of it. Get your moaning and groaning out in the next 5 minutes and get it written down in terms of what kind of problems, from your perspective, this causes you, causes your faculty, or causes your institution. Okay? Go. Okay. Please put your pencils and pens down on this. So, my good reasons table. We're going to have a few of these written down. Do we have a mic runner? Okay. Okay. Perfect. So if you could give the mic to whoever the spokesperson is at that table. Who did you pick?
Testing.
Please name just one of the good reasons that you identified.
It limits exposure of personal data to need to know.
Okay. Limits personal data to need to know. Thank you. Okay. Can you pass the mic behind you? Then I'm going to flip on this.
It's easier to manage.
Okay. All right, problems, tables. Not problem tables, just problem. Okay, yeah. Go ahead, and then we'll go behind. Just one.
Ours was the complete opposite, extremely difficult to manage.
Okay. Yeah, good.
There's a middleman.
There's a middleman? Okay. Okay, now as we go to some of the other tables, we won't go through every single table, but we'll go to many of you. Please only name something that's new, that top thing that you have on your list that isn't already up here, okay? Let's keep going this way.
Internal audit likes justifications for everything on a specificity that doesn't lend itself to collaboration.
Okay. And it's from internal audit, that's the driver? Okay. Okay, one more on the good reasons. table behind? If you don't have a new one, you can pass. But
Sometimes faculty don't want to share their research with other researchers, even within their own department.
okay. 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 Problem, folks.
We can't confirm salaries for collaborators or grad students outside our department, which leads for late budget proposal submission.
Okay. Good. Go to the table behind.
So you have to go to many different people or places to get one action accomplished?
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, we're going on the positive side again. No throwing things across. Okay, so what other new items do you have for good reasons? Do you have one? Do you have any? You can pass if you don't. Yeah, we got one here. Okay.
Accountability.
Okay. Would this table like to add one more thing? Say that one more time. I didn't quite get. Oh, it causes collaboration. Okay. 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 And on this side, who else would like to? That table? Good.
So when the lead PI doesn't want to segment a budget, it causes lack of transparency in post-award spending and F&A distribution.
Okay. Submarines it, right? So, yeah.
Just overall delays in everything. Delay, 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 delay.
Okay.
So that's fine. You can just put delay.
Right. Great, okay. Does anybody either have a good reason or a list of problems that's not already up here that they think should be? Go ahead.
We said that there's flexibility and autonomy for each college and department to set the rules or the policies or processes that are truly
Good one.
unique to them.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. These are good lists. So now I have two related questions for you.
We just said it was difficult to get the tiers effort
Oh.
certification or reporting
Oh,
for
good,
closeouts.
okay. So it's making effort certification more difficult? Is that, am I getting that right? Okay. Okay, good. Anybody else? Okay, yeah, got another one here.
I have two more positives. The first is less chance of error.
Less chance of error?
And the second is it prevents transactions from being done unilaterally.
Okay.
From
Prevents transactions from being done unilaterally. Anybody want to respond? Okay. Okay. One more? Okay. Go for it.
Like, so the response to that is conflicting information. So going to two different groups and getting told two different things and not knowing how to proceed.
Uh-huh. Okay, good. Okay. Anybody else? Have we got the major ones? Okay. So I want to ask you now, at your table, think about how did you go about picking your spokesperson? don't have to leave because I asked that question. It's okay. So, okay. So, apparently debate. Okay. So, who wants to volunteer an answer to that? Yeah. This is just group, full group.
We picked the person who wrote the notes and who has the biggest mouth.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else want to volunteer? Yeah, go
Our
ahead.
leader, Megan Kerr, is just a natural born leader.
Okay.
Like I volunteered now, I volunteered then.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Over here?
Veronica voluntold me.
Valentine. Okay, and we got another one over here. You guys are getting your steps in, right? Is that right? Okay. Yeah.
We picked our leader because he's the crowd's favorite.
Oh. And that's going to go really
I did
well
not
with
tell
the
her to say
slide
that.
I've got, right? So okay, so anybody else? Okay, second related question. Did anybody have someone at their table that contributed an idea that they were impressed with, but wasn't something you thought of yourself? Yeah? How many tables had that? Look, yeah, look around the room and see how many people are answering that question, okay? Because it's really important when it comes to collaboration, and we're going to talk about that. So, what you all did, these are our models of team development, okay? Now, you didn't have a whole lot of choice in the forming, because you got assigned you sat with whomever you sat with, and that became, for this purpose, your mini team, okay? So you didn't have a lot of choice relative to that. But teams can happen. They can be bottom up, because you just decide with colleagues or needs that these are the right people, or it can be top down, or it can happen almost spontaneously, like more or less that you sat down at your tables. So there's no one right answer about how you go ahead and putting together a team. But they go through these stages, and I'm going to show you as we walk through some of the other things this afternoon, is that you're going to kind of see how that actually plays out. So, but let's talk first about trust. So, and this is a really, really important aspect when you're going to collaborate, and frankly, when scientists collaborate, is you've got to have trust. And there's different kinds of trust, and in some of your answers, you modeled exactly what this is all about. So the first one is calculus-based trust, okay? Now, that didn't get modeled in your answers, and actually that's probably a good thing. But can anybody think of an example of when this almost by default occurs? Sorry? Yeah, putting somebody in charge. It usually is, let's say most of the time, what happens is whoever your boss is, there's an element of this kind of trust that goes along with having a boss. And it's not a bad thing. It just comes with the turf, or comes with the territory, if you will. And so basically this is, I'm calculating the general rewards or loss of rewards based on who this person is. So you might be perfectly willing to challenge your colleague, but you're not necessarily quite as willing or comfortable challenging your boss, because they have power and they have a role. But you also have trust because they've been hired to do a job that's at a level more senior than yours, and so you assume somebody knew what they were doing in terms of hiring that person. So that's an example of that kind of trust. The others are more common for the types of things that we all do. The identity-based trust is something that can happen, for example, if you have parallel roles across all of your colleges, you may go into it thinking, oh, these are people that do the same job I do. So I already have some trust in their knowledge, in their experience, in what they can bring to the table, because I know they do what I do. And I feel like I'm going to at least start off believing they know what they're doing. And then there's competency-based trust. And so when you answered, this is the, somebody that you have great faith in, or I'm assuming it's favorite for the right kind of reasons. It's you're indicating, I trust that person because I've seen them be competent in other ways. And so now I can have confidence in this team or in this collaboration that they're going to be good to work with. What you really were all exhibiting at your tables, though, is what's called swift trust. And that is, I'm assuming that every person at my table is equally valuable and has a perspective that's just as good as mine, absent any information to the contrary. So you're going into it with a positive mindset. Yeah, we're all valuable. Okay? Now, I will tell you that there are 5 things that make teams or collaborations go south. And one of those 5, and the one that's usually named number 1, is trust. You stop trusting. You stop trusting the leaders, or you stop trusting the vision, and that's how it gets messed up. Okay? So trust is really, really important, and there are actually things, I'm going to give you access to a document later, that can help you with this if you want to, in terms of how you build trust in a team. Okay. So the next thing is harnessing diversity, okay? And you were all talking about that earlier with the fact that you have many different generations involved in your workforce, okay? So that's certainly one kind of diversity. But the literature tells us that when you build teams, there may be a natural comfort zone to just build with others that look like yourself, but it actually leads to worse outcomes. It actually is better if you have a diversity of opinions. And remember that question I asked you before, who brought up something that you didn't think of? Almost every table raised their hand. And that's just making that point. Because the point is that when we have diversity of opinion, as long as people are not feeling unduly pressured to agree, because if you do that, you're messing this up. But the sense is, if you mix up people in a team, you'll end up with a better outcome than if you didn't. Now, what's our natural tendency? You put together a work group like for your new electronic system, or any project that you all may have going on. There's this natural tendency to say, let's pick the experts from each area. That actually, as it turns out, is a bad idea. Because you need diversity of opinion. And you need diversity of how you approach things as well. Chances are it could be you or it could be somebody else, might be the thoughtful one. Maybe you're not that thought leader that's the first one to answer or the first one to volunteer, but you're the one sitting, listening, and puzzling through all of that information going, I think I should bring up this other point over here, or could we consolidate Joe's and Amanda's comments together and make it this? Because you're being thoughtful, and having those kinds of teams where you've got that diversity of approach will actually help you also lead to a better outcome. Some people feel like, I can't be on a team because I know nearly as much as he does or she does. I can't do it. They're actually probably exactly the person you want on your team because of that. So, but I did find this particular quote just fascinating. So when we're talking diversity, what are we talking about? We're talking about diversity of everything. We talked over there, I heard you talk about the diversity in age and what you bring to the table and what your expectations are, but there's all kinds of different diversity. And I brought this chart because I thought it might be good because it just reminds us of the different kinds of diversity. And there's part here that has particular meaning for what we do. And one of those is experience or length of service. You know what? I have been doing this for 35 years. I have forgotten what it means to wonder what a principal investigator is. Okay? I've just been doing it too long. But I got brand new staff members who are like, well, I don't know what the difference is between a PI and a co-PI and a co-investigator and I only, maybe I just have a bachelor's and I don't know the different academic ranks and I don't know how that plays into what we do. Or, okay, I know a dean's an important person, but I don't know how important. There's all kinds of things, right, that come with that diversity, but you also might end up with all this richness that you're maybe missing, tapping out in your team if you don't mix it all up like this. So you can see just examples. So when you go to pick teams, my recommendation for you, or to collaborate, is purposely look for diversity on these scales. You won't get all of them. Your team would be so big that it would be unwieldy, but you can get a bunch of them, okay, so that you can get those different perspectives, okay, coming in. And the other thing is, I think there's some operational realities here that we all at the university have to just be aware of. And that is, there are people at the university that have more power than others. And we better know who's in a position to influence the outcome that we want, and we better set ourselves up to be able to influence or help that person understand the needs that we have on any given topic. So in a few minutes, we're going to get to how are you going to fix this, how are you going to come together and work this out type of thing. But I'll bet you there is one or more senior university leaders that somebody in this room is going to end up trying or working toward influencing to be able to get the outcome that you all would like to have on this. Okay. So now I want to do this just as a whole group. How do you work? I mean, you've got these competing positions, right? But you have collaborative science. I know you have collaborative science. What do you do right now to work on this? How do you make this work? Okay. Can I get scribes back and we can just put those up on the side and be thinking about them, but just write down, what do you do now? Do you just... Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't do a good job of phrasing the question I have for you. My question is, how do you cope with the fact that you have these silos right now? You're right in terms of the next thing we're going to talk about. But right now, it's like, what do you do to work around it? Okay. So it's building personal relationships with your siloed partners? Okay. Can you tell me what that actually achieves for you? What it does? Sorry. I didn't let him finish. So.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. All right, so it's just nice to have little eyes and little ears in every place on campus so that if you need something done, even if they're not the person that can get it done for you, hopefully they have a relationship with someone else where they can point you in the right direction and maybe put in a good word for you so that you don't have to re-explain the problem, 2 or 3 times.
Okay, excellent, thank you. How many people experience that? Is that pretty common? Good, okay. All right, what other ideas do you have for working through it? Yeah.
Okay, so it's immediately sending an email or picking up the phone and calling my counterpart in another college, another department, as soon as we found out that we do need to do this collaboration.
Okay, good. Those of you that work with the financial system, do you have any insights? How do you make that work? Anybody? I don't know how many people here work with the financial system. So, okay, what other ideas do you have? Obviously, the interpersonal relationships are important, right? Extra important. So,
I'm not real sure if this is where you're going, but one thing that we've done, if we have a situation where a project is managed in one department or organizational unit code, we have set up like Google Forms so that the faculty in other units outside of our organizational unit can submit a request, and then we can complete that financial transaction, that purchase for them.
so
Not ideal, but it seems to work.
okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you will create as elegant as you can workaround for the system constraints. Is that a fair interpretation? Okay. Do other people do that too? Yeah? Some? Or take advantage of yours? Okay. Okay. What else do you do? Okay, how many? I'm going to say this in a way that's not politically correct. How many suck it up and live with it? Right. Okay. Yeah, some. Okay. So I guess to some extent you all do, right? Okay. Right. What else? Right. What? No, you can skip that one. Thank you very much. Right. Take it. So, right.
I'm thinking on the
Yeah.
board side, which
Yeah.
I don't have as much experience with, but my observations in our college is that we'll contact the fiscal manager at the contracts and grants level to say, hey, can you help us navigate this situation? Because you're seeing the whole picture. Can you help us figure things out that we're not able to see or do because you're looking at the whole project?
Okay, so whoever owns the award, let's say, they can see everything?
At the university level.
At the university level. Okay, good. So you contact someone who can see it all and get them to assist you. Are they allowed to share that with you?
Let's hear from contracts and grants.
Okay, so sorry, I'm just saying, I mean,
It depends.
yeah, it depends. Okay. The only point of my asking that, not trying to make it awkward for anybody, but is sometimes those can be super helpful because you know how to navigate the system, and in other cases, sometimes innocently, we can be asking each other questions that we actually shouldn't be within our course's scope of duties respond to, and you actually may be inadvertently creating tension, right, instead of solving it, instead of just trying to get your job done and trying to do it, okay? And it's an important concept, so keep that in your head, okay? Anybody else? Okay. So again, one of my tangential questions. How did it make you feel when I asked others, do you do that too, and a whole bunch of people raised their hands? Does that feel pretty good? Yeah. Does it feel better than if no one had raised their hand?
Well, I would feel sorry for people if they had formed, relationships with their counterparts here on
Right.
campus because we all work together.
Right. It seems really obvious, right, that that's a good and a healthy thing to do. So in essence, you're collaborating, although it might be collaborate on a must-have basis instead of a voluntary choice, right, basis, because you need to create those relationships in order to make it work together. Okay, so the point of having this slide back up is that you are now, by having this kind of a conversation, what we're talking about is kind of the storming and norming, okay, parts of this equation of building a team. Because really you can start when you're trying to form and build a team, it's really good to just start with something that everybody or nearly everyone experiences. And just get it out there. Write it down. What do you like? What do you not like? And what do you do today to make it work? And the reason that that matters is because when you go towards finding longer-term solutions, sometimes you'll take advantage in a more elegant way of what you're doing on an informal basis to get to a solution point for what you're doing. The other thing is part of norming is you start learning how to trust each other, okay? Now, it sounds like you guys do a really good job of that here, but that isn't all that common, to be honest with you. There's a lot of times that people are not so comfortable with each other. And I'm guessing because every place has some of that there must be some of that here too. But that's getting to comfort. So if you say, yes, I will make sure you get that allocation out by next Tuesday, you trust the person is actually going to make that happen. Or here's the expenses on the project, and you don't find out later that those aren't the expenses, or that project report is due at some other time, or whatever the actual fact is. But you've got that trust with your partners. But part of building a team here is also creating those shared experiences, so you just feel better about, yeah, I'm on the right path here, because other people are experiencing exactly that same thing with me. It's comforting to have something generally known and understood. It's also an excellent baseline for getting it changed. So see on these two sides, where we wrote down the problems and the good reasons why we have something, that tells me on this particular issue it will be a tough problem to solve, because there are in some cases absolutely opposite viewpoints. It helps collaboration, it hurts collaboration. It makes it easier, it makes it harder, okay? So that's going to have to be all worked through to get to a point where it actually works for you. Now, I'm betting most of you work in teams, and there are certain type of individuals that can derail your team or your collaboration. And there's kind of three major categories, if you will, of those kinds of people. The first one is the slacker. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. They don't do their part in the team, or they don't get their part done of whatever the homework or action item is. Then there's the miscreant, okay? So the miscreant is the person that's kind of out to sabotage and to make everything worse and argumentative, and just a problem, making a problem, even if the problem is minor, making it a problem. Sometimes because they just don't have faith in the whole process, sometimes because it's just a personality style, okay? And as a leader of a team, you start to learn tricks and tips for how to do that. And we don't have enough time to do all that today. And the third kind is the depressive pessimist, okay? Okay? And you can kind of guess what that person is too, but that's the person that kind of brings the whole team down, because they're convinced that you can't succeed. They're always negative, instead of sometimes like, I'm not feeling like that necessarily will get us to where we need to go. But they're the ones that are, well, that's no good, right? All the time, okay? So you have to be aware and be prepared when you have a collaboration, and this happens for our faculty as well as it happens for us, of these kinds of personality traits and kind of people, and how to work with them. If you're interested in leading a team, you need to learn how to deal with these. And again, I'm going to give you some references, so that may help. And your HR can help as well. But there's a lot of power within the team. If you don't let him take over and be a pessimist, sorry, I'm just taking advantage of you being there, then he can't do it. And when the team shuts it down, you end up in a better place to be able to move forward, okay? But sometimes people are afraid to speak up, and I'm telling you, you have enormous power just as a member of a collaborative group in order to move things forward. Okay. So, before I do that, okay. All right, one more. This is the last exercise part. We still have 15 minutes. So now I'm going to do that same split. Okay. This side, you know these problems. You know what the rationale is for why there might be good reason for this. What do you want your new electronic system to do about it? Pre-award or post-award, doesn't matter. What do you want your new electronic system to do about it? Write it down. Okay? And you got 5 minutes, and pick a spokesperson, but it cannot be the same person. Okay? On the other hand, you guys over here, sorry I'm from the Midwest, I don't know y'all, but I do know you guys. Okay. You guys, if you could have it your way, never mind if it's electronic system or not, think big picture, get out of the box. If you were going to do collaborations any way you wanted to, so that they weren't siloed, what would you change? What would you do? Write those down. So this is the 30-second challenge, all right? We're only going to do 3 tables. I'm going to pick them at random. And I'm going to say, give me one of your answers, your top answer. Try not to repeat. But you got to do it in 30 seconds or less. And we'll write it down. And this group is, what do you want the electronic system to do to solve this? That table. Second table in. Okay, very good. I'll take volunteers from this table. Yeah.
Make sure everyone is involved in the process.
Uh-huh.
For the love of God.
Right. Do you really expect all stakeholders to actually have a stake? What a concept. Right, yes. Okay, good. One other from this side. Yeah.
Like all research administrators to have access to salary information across the board.
Okay, excellent. And in case you're wondering, other public universities, including mine, has that. So okay. All right. This side, same thing. We're just going to do 3 tables because then we're going to move on. Go.
Having the ability to ad hoc in approvers or users from other OUCs just on an as-needed basis.
Great. Okay. Add in at the originating unit's discretion. All right, perfect. So, other tables, raise your hand if you got one. Go ahead. We'll do those 2 tables, yeah.
Kind of speaking for Dolly here, but rather than divide us into colleges and departments, instead divide us into programs, for example, public health, that would share the same type of research and have representatives from every level of administration within that centralized hub.
So basically organized by the way you would collaborate anyway, is that what I'm hearing? Okay, all right. And then last one back here.
We said that we needed to start having either pre-award and post-award meetings where everybody's at the table and then they'll know exactly what their role is supposed to be in the project.
Yep. Excellent. Okay. So, why did I do it this way? Okay. Did you notice the expectations that I set up front? So I was saying things like what you see up there. You know, what do you want the new electronic system to do about it? I limited this half of the room to coming up with solutions that only related to the electronic system. So by my setting that expectation, they complied, which is awesome. But did you notice their solutions were different? When you didn't have any constraints on you, you came up with a different set of solutions or potential solutions than when I did put expectations on, okay? Now, sometimes expectations are favorable, like you have 30 seconds, pick a new spokesperson, or if I said select your top 3, right? Because then what you're doing is saying, we do not have time for everything. We have to get to what's the most important, and we need to get there quickly. So let's focus our attention. If an entire room of people eventually got to a point of these are our top 3, there's a really good chance that our solution's somewhere in those 3, okay? And so you're finding that balance between making sure that you can get to the right answer, but you're not being so broad that you're going to be here 3 years until next Thursday trying to get there, okay? So it's important. Okay, so that's really why I'm saying this. It can also help you with dynamics if you do end up with members that are a bit unruly. It helps you manage the dynamic. We don't have that here, but if you did have that, it would help you a little bit with being able to do that better. Now, I think we probably all had on team somebody that said something like that, right? Somewhere along the line of, they have not an 80-20 rule, they have a 99.82% rule, right? And, you know, if we're going to adopt it, it has to work for absolutely everything. Well, you know, probably not going to happen, right? So when you have something like setting expectations and focusing it, it can super help in terms of getting to the right place. But you got to be really careful when you do it, because otherwise you do what I did on purpose here, is limit the solution set. So be mindful of that. I also want to encourage you as much as possible to stay in dialogue mode when you do this. I put these up just so you can see and the citation. Our tendency is to debate when we get into actual ideas. My idea is better than your idea. Instead of saying, what's the good parts of your idea? What's the good part of my idea? Is there any idea that blends those two in together? And by the way, these slides are available to you afterwards if there's interest for you to have. But I wanted to point that out as try to get to dialogue when you're in your teams as much as you can, because you will end up with something that lives longer. I had a work group about 8 years ago that was the ever popular gifts versus grants, right? Because I'm kind of guessing that might also be a good topic. And it took us 2 years to get 2 years with an outcome as we wanted of a basically one-page, two-sided, but one-page document that said, here's how you tell. Plus a work group that within you can submit your statement of work or your situation, and we'll tell you within 3 business days which it is, okay? We have another category too, but that's in there. Now, it took us 2 years, but here's the good news. Not only are we now fast friends with our foundation in a way that we never were before, because we know everything about them and they know everything about us after all that much time together. But the other thing is, it's 8 years later and we're still using it. It stood up the test of time, and the only reason it did is because we took the time it needed to get there and to move everybody along, inch along in some cases, but to get everybody there. So sometimes the time investment is worth it. Other times, you just don't have that time that you can put in. But think about what makes sense for that. And again, so now when you're done, what you were doing here is you guys were working together. You were on that part of the spectrum where you're actually performing, okay? And what happens at the end is you transform. Now, it'd be great fun for me to come back a year from now and see where you are with this. I'm going to challenge you to take the work that we did here today and actually push it forward, to create a collaborative team, to work together. I would be glad to help however I can, but to work together, to work through, especially while you're doing your new electronic system, to figure out a way to make that happen. And I want to show you the best kind of mindset to go into it. It's called principled negotiation. I think when I think of that, I'm just saying, well, I'm going to negotiate fairly and properly, but that's not what it means in this context. You want to separate the people from the problem. There was somebody at one institution I was at, we called it the Christine factor. Basically, sorry, that's not your name, I'm sorry. It's not you, right? No, but basically, we all ended up, and we had to stop ourselves. That from, she was one of those more difficult personalities, and we stopped listening to what she had to say, and we should not have, because she had good ideas, and we needed to separate the ideas from the person, okay? So you want to focus on your interests, not your positions, and you want to come up with something more creative. See how we got more options on this side? That's what I'm talking about, coming up with new ideas, some of which you may find ultimately not to be workable, but you still want to go down that path to get it the right solution as much as you possibly can. And you want to think future. This is not about, well, 3 years ago, or worse, 20 years ago, I had this situation over here. Get away from that, okay? It doesn't apply. Except maybe if you have that as 20% of your award volume, okay, then you got to deal with it. But other than that, let it go. Find a big garbage can, and you can take it and write it down and put it in there. And it's always there, and you'll never look at it again, okay? Something like that. Okay, were we able to tally up? I don't think I asked you to do that, to tally. So you know what? Afterwards, I'm going to ask that you find out from your own group, generally speaking, and this is a little bit age-related too, but generally speaking, group things, group accomplishments, team accomplishments at the end of the day mean more to us than individual accomplishments. And that's more and more true, at least the literature has said, as we get older. The ability to work and to remember fondly is about, oh my gosh, I got to work with him on that team, making that happen. I'm going to guess that your data is going to come out that way, okay? Because you guys already work well together. So I'm guessing that's going to be the case. Again, it's not, honestly, important so much about which it is, except to remember the value of that collaboration and that too, in addition to what you achieve personally, can make a huge difference in how you feel about your job, about your work, and about your colleagues, and about your university. And then finally, I leave you with some tips, again, for successful collaboration. And again, you can keep these. And a lot of what I've talked about today, I have drawn from this source document. This is NCI's Team Science Guide. And it's free, it's online, I gave you the link. A lot of what I had here today, it came from that. And I found it absolutely eye-opening in terms of how to make collaborations be effective and keep them from going off track. Again, I challenge you to take on this particular topic, and I would love to hear what you do with it. And thank you very much for inviting me today.
Thank you, Pamela. We do have a couple minutes for a break, so again, take this time to answer your emails or phone calls that you may need to do. We do have some refreshments in the back. Coffee has been refreshed, and there are a few desserts if you would like to get a little sugar bump before the rest of our program. Please be back in your seats by as close to 2:45 as possible. Thank you.